I am Grace, 32 years old, working as an accountant in Boston. I used to believe family was everything, especially the bond with my brother Jack. Then came the day I discovered an unauthorized loan in my name. The confusion quickly turned to betrayal when I learned Jack was behind it. But nothing could prepare me for my parents demanding I pay off his debt and stay silent. That moment forced me to make a decision that would forever change everything. Before I dive into how my own family betrayed me, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect. Growing up in a quiet middle-class neighborhood in Massachusetts shaped my understanding of family. My parents, Michael and Elizabeth, instilled in us one core value above all others. Family loyalty comes first. We stick together no matter what. We protect our own. We never air our dirty laundry. From early on, there were subtle signs that my younger brother Jack held a special place in my parents' hearts. When he broke my science fair project the night before, judging my mother comforted him for feeling bad rather than addressing my tears. When he forgot his lines in the school play, my father praised his courage for trying while barely noticing I had won the spelling bee the same week. I accepted this as normal the way families worked. Jack was charming, charismatic, and could talk his way out of anything with a smile that melted hearts. I was the responsible one, the planner, the achiever. Our roles seemed set in stone from childhood. My path was straightforward. I studied relentlessly through high school, earned a partial scholarship to Boston University, and worked part-time jobs to cover the rest. My parents contributed what they could, but made it clear college was primarily my responsibility. I graduated with an accounting degree, pride in only minimal student loans that I diligently paid off within 5 years. Living frugally became second nature. While friends splurged on expensive apartments and designer clothes, I shared a place with roommates and shopped sales. Every decision was calculated with my future in mind. By 28, I had established an excellent credit score, built an emergency fund, and started investing for retirement. Financial security wasn't just a goal, it was my form of self-protection in an unpredictable world. Jack took a different approach to life. He started college 3 separate times at 3 different schools. First business administration, then communications, finally psychology. None lasted more than 2 semesters before he found reasons why each program wasn't right for him. My parents nodded sympathetically each time explaining to relatives that Jack was finding himself, and too creative for conventional education. His financial patterns emerged early. At 19, he maxed out his first credit card within months. My parents paid it off. At 22, he borrowed money for a car he couldn't afford, fell behind on payments, and my father covered the deficit to prevent repossession. By 25, Jack had accumulated personal loans, unpaid medical bills, and a collection agency calling regularly. Each time my parents found ways to bail him out, often dipping into their retirement savings. "Your brother is struggling right now," my mother would say. "He just needs time to get on his feet." Meanwhile, Jack bounced between jobs, bartender, sales associate, administrative assistant. Nothing stuck for more than a few months. There was always a problem: difficult boss, toxic workplace, or not enough opportunity for advancement. The real issue, his chronic lateness, unprofessional attitude, and inability to follow through, went unaddressed. Family gatherings became showcases for this dynamic. During Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago, I mentioned my promotion at the accounting firm. My father nodded briefly before turning to Jack. "Any prospects coming up, son?" Jack launched into an elaborate story about a friend who might help him land a marketing position. My mother beamed as he described the potential salary and benefits, despite his lacking qualifications for the role. The job never materialized, of course, but that evening, everyone raised glasses to Jack's bright future, while my actual achievement faded into background noise. Christmas was even more telling. I had spent weeks selecting thoughtful gifts within my budget. Jack arrived empty-handed, explaining his paycheck hadn't come through in time. Instead of disappointment, my mother hugged him. "Your presence is present enough, sweetheart." Later that night, I overheard my parents discussing finances in the kitchen. My father mentioned postponing their anniversary trip due to helping Jack with rent again. My mother sighed but agreed it was necessary. Then she added something that stuck with me. "I wish Grace would understand how to support the family during tough times. She has that good job now. I pretended not to hear, but the message was clear. My success wasn't just for me, it was expected to become a resource for the family, particularly for Jack. Despite these undercurrents, I built a life I was proud of. By 32, I had secured a comfortable one-bedroom apartment in a pleasant Boston neighborhood. Not luxurious, but mine. The promotion to senior accountant came after years of proving myself. My boss appreciated my attention to detail and ethical approach to our clients' finances. And then there was David. We had been dating for nearly 2 years after meeting at a friend's wedding. He was kind, stable, and respected my independence, unlike previous boyfriends who found me too cautious or obsessed with security. David understood my need for financial stability came from a deeper place. He was also the first person to gently question my family dynamics. "Have you noticed your parents have different expectations for you and Jack?" he asked after meeting them at a birthday dinner where Jack had arrived an hour late, disrupting the entire evening. "That's just how families work," I had replied automatically. "Different kids, different approaches." David didn't push, but his question lingered. Still, life was good. I was eyeing houses in the suburbs, calculating down payments, and planning for that next step. After years of careful financial management, homeownership was finally within reach. I had no idea that the foundation I had built so carefully was about to be shaken by the people I trusted most. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was preparing for a client meeting. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Occupational hazard of an accountant during tax season. People often call from new numbers when panicking about finances. "Is this Grace Patterson?" The woman's voice was professionally detached. "Yes, this is Grace." "This is Melissa Williams from Eastern Collections Agency. I'm calling about your overdue payment on a personal loan from Liberty Finance. You're now 60 days past due, and if payment isn't received within 72 hours, we'll have to report this delinquency to credit bureaus." My heart dropped. There must be some mistake. I don't have any personal loans. The loan was issued 4 months ago for $25,000. According to our records, no payments have been made since the initial grace period ended. The room seemed to tilt. This is a mistake or a scam. I never took out such a loan. Melissa continued with practiced patience. "I understand your concern, but this loan was approved with your social security number, address, and includes your signature on the documentation. I strongly recommend making at least the minimum payment while you sort this out." I ended the call after getting reference numbers and contact information, my hands shaking. Scam, I thought immediately. It had to be. Yet something felt terribly wrong. I canceled my client meeting and began investigating. First, I pulled my credit reports from all 3 bureaus. The loan was there on each one: Liberty Finance personal loan, $25,000 60 days past due. My credit score had already plummeted nearly 100 points. Worse yet, I found multiple credit inquiries from various lenders in the 2 weeks before the loan was approved, suggesting someone had been shopping around using my information. Cold fear settled in my stomach as I called Liberty Finance directly. After verifying my identity, they emailed copies of the loan application and approval documents. There it was, a signature that resembled mine, but with subtle differences I could immediately spot. The application listed my correct employment information, social security number, even my mother's maiden name. This wasn't random identity theft. This was someone who knew me well. The loan funds had been deposited into a checking account and withdrawn entirely as a cashier's check the same day. The account number wasn't familiar, but when I asked for the name on the account, the customer service representative confirmed it. Jack Patterson was listed as a joint account holder. My brother, my own brother. I sat in stunned silence in my apartment that evening, documents spread across my dining table. The evidence was irrefutable. Jack had stolen my identity, taken out a massive loan in my name, and disappeared with the money. Now collectors were after me, my credit was tanking, and I faced potential financial ruin from a debt I never incurred. I called Jack's cell phone repeatedly, straight to voicemail every time. I texted, "We need to talk about the Liberty Finance loan now." No response. Finally, around midnight, my phone rang. "Gracie," Jack's voice sounded worn, smaller than usual. "I can explain. You forged my signature and stole $25,000 in my name. What possible explanation could there be? My voice shook with fury and disbelief. I was going to pay it back before you ever found out. He paused. I got into some trouble with some guys. Gambling. I thought I could win it back, but things got worse and they were threatening me. I was desperate. So you decided to ruin my credit and stick me with your debt. How could you do this to me? Jack's voice cracked. I know it was wrong. I swear I'm going to fix this. I just got a new job opportunity that's promising. Give me a little time and I'll start making payments. You won't have to pay anything. A job opportunity like all your other opportunities that never work out. Do you understand this is fraud? This is criminal, Jack. Please, Grace, I'm begging you, don't report this. It would ruin my life. You've already ruined mine. And this isn't the first time, is it? A horrible suspicion had been growing as I reviewed my credit reports. Those credit inquiries from last year when I got declined for that credit card upgrade was that you too. His silence confirmed it. I need that money back, Jack. All of it. Or I'm reporting this as fraud. I don't have it anymore. His voice was barely a whisper. But I promise I'll figure something out. Just give me some time. Please, Grace. After hanging up, I couldn't sleep. The betrayal cut deep, but even worse was the practical reality. That loan would continue damaging my credit with every passing day. The missed payments would haunt my financial record for years. My plans for buying a house were evaporating before my eyes. Physical symptoms of anxiety overwhelmed me. My chest tightened. Breathing became difficult, and I spent most of the night pacing, alternating between tears and rage. This wasn't just about money. It was a profound violation by someone I loved and trusted. The next morning, exhausted and red-eyed, I called David. He came over immediately, listened to the whole story, and held me while I cried. You have to report this as fraud, Grace, he said finally. I know he's your brother, but this isn't a misunderstanding or a small mistake. This is serious, and you need to protect yourself legally and financially. But what about Jack if I report this? David took my hands. Ask yourself this: if Jack cared about consequences, would he have done this in the first place? You're not responsible for protecting him from his own actions. You need to protect yourself. Deep down, I knew David was right, but first I needed to understand exactly what my family knew about all this. My mother called that afternoon, her voice unusually tight. We need to have a family dinner tonight. Your father and I want to discuss something important. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Jack had clearly called them. Is this about the loan Jack took out in my name? I asked directly. A pause. Just come to dinner at 6, Grace. We'll talk then. The familiar drive to my parents' suburban home felt different this time. The tidy lawns and welcoming porches of their neighborhood had always represented safety and comfort. Today, they seemed like facades hiding unknown secrets. My parents' house looked the same as always, the blue 2-story colonial where we'd grown up with my mother's carefully tended garden and my father's immaculate lawn. But the atmosphere inside was thick with tension. My mother greeted me with a quick, stiff hug. My father nodded from his position by the fireplace, standing rather than sitting in his usual recliner. Jack was notably absent. Where's Jack? I asked, setting my purse down. He'll join us shortly, my mother replied, busying herself arranging a plate of barely touched appetizers. He wanted to give us a chance to talk first. We sat awkwardly in the living room making forced small talk about the weather and my mother's garden club, until my father finally cleared his throat. Grace, Jack told us about this situation with the loan. You mean the fraud he committed using my personal information? I kept my voice level despite the anger bubbling beneath. My mother flinched. That's a very harsh way to put it. I pulled out the loan documents from my bag, spreading them across the coffee table. This is the evidence. He forged my signature. He stole my identity. He took $25,000 and disappeared with it. Now my credit is ruined. Collection agencies are calling, and I'm being held responsible for his debt. What would you call it? My father leaned forward, eyes scanning the papers briefly before looking up. Jack made a mistake, certainly. But throwing around words like fraud and theft is excessive. This is a family matter we can resolve privately. How exactly do you propose we resolve 25,000 of debt that's destroying my financial standing by the day? I asked, disbelief creeping into my voice. My parents exchanged glances before my mother spoke softly. We think the best solution is for you to take responsibility for the loan payments for now. The room seemed to freeze. Excuse me? Just until Jack gets back on his feet, my father added quickly. He's got a promising opportunity lined up, and once he's stable again, he can take over the payments or pay you back. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline that never came. You want me to pay for a fraudulent loan my brother took out in my name? It's just money, Grace, my father said dismissively. Your credit will recover eventually. Jack is facing much more serious consequences right now. My mother reached for my hand, which I pulled back. Sweetheart, your brother is going through an extremely difficult time. He made a bad decision, yes, but reporting this as fraud would completely destroy his future. He could face criminal charges. As he should. I stood up, unable to contain myself any longer. Do you understand what he's done to me? This isn't just about money. He violated my trust completely. He stole my identity. He forged my signature. These are crimes. Lower your voice, my father warned. You've always been financially stable. This setback won't ruin you. But for Jack, legal consequences could derail his entire life. I laughed incredulously. My financial stability isn't accidental, Dad. I worked for it. I sacrificed for it. I planned for it. And now you want me to throw it away because Jack couldn't control his gambling. My mother's head snapped up. He told you about the gambling? Yes, and about the people threatening him. Is that true or just another manipulation? My parents exchanged another look and my stomach sank. There was more. Jack's problems are more serious than you know, my mother admitted. The gambling debts are substantial. There have been threats. These aren't nice people he owes money to. All the more reason he needs real consequences before his behavior escalates further. I insisted. You don't understand, my father said, his voice hardening. If Jack doesn't pay these people soon, they've threatened violence. This isn't a game. So your solution is to make me pay for his mistakes. Again, when does it stop? I gathered the documents, shoving them back into my bag. I'm reporting this as fraud. I have to protect myself. My father stood, his face flushing. If you do that, you'll be putting your brother in danger both from these loan sharks and from legal consequences. That's his responsibility, not mine. Grace, my mother pleaded, tears forming. Family protects family. That's what we've always taught you. How can you turn your back on your brother when he needs you most? The manipulation was so transparent it physically hurt. I've always been there for Jack. For all of you. But this crosses a line that shouldn't be crossed. My father's expression darkened as he delivered his ultimatum. If you report this fraud and subject your brother to criminal investigation, you're choosing the legal system over your family. You'll no longer be welcome in this house or in our lives. Is that really what you want? The words hit like physical blows. Are you serious right now? You're threatening to disown me because I won't cover up Jack's crime. It's your choice, he said flatly. Drop this fraud nonsense and work with Jack on a payment plan, or you're out of the family. It's that simple. Before I could respond, the front door opened and Jack appeared. He looked terrible, unshaven. Dark circles under bloodshot eyes, shoulders slumped. My mother immediately went to him, putting an arm around him protectively. Grace, he said hoarsely. Please, I know I messed up badly, but I can't handle legal trouble right now. I'll pay you back somehow, I swear. Looking at the three of them, my father stern and immovable, my mother tearfully clutching Jack. My brother appearing pathetic, yet somehow still at the center of everyone's concern. Something broke inside me. This isn't love, I said quietly. This is enabling. This is dysfunction. And I won't be part of it anymore. I walked out my mother's sobs and my father's angry calls following me to my car. I drove away from my childhood home with tears streaming down my face, feeling completely betrayed by the people who should have loved me most. That night was the darkest I can remember. I sat on my apartment floor back against the couch, surrounded by tissues and loan documents, sobbing, until no more tears would come. The ultimatum echoed in my mind: choose between financial ruin and family excommunication. I called David around midnight, waking him. "They told me to pay it off or get out of the family," I said without preamble, voice raw from crying. "I'm coming over," he replied immediately. 20 minutes later, he was at my door with ice cream and a steadfast presence that kept me grounded when everything else was spinning out of control. "I don't know what to do," I admitted as we sat at my kitchen table. $25,000 would wipe out most of my savings. My house down payment would be gone. And for what? So Jack can learn that he can keep doing this without consequences. "You already know the answer," David said gently. "You're just afraid of what it means." He was right. Deep down, I knew what I needed to do, but the implications terrified me. Could I really live with being cut off from my family? Would they actually go through with their threat? The uncertainty was paralyzing. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent hours calculating exactly what this loan would cost me. Principal plus interest over the 5-year term would total nearly $35,000. My credit score had already dropped 110 points, disqualifying me from the best mortgage rates. Even if I took over the payments legitimately, the initial delinquency would remain on my record for 7 years. My financial advisor had once told me an excellent credit history is built over decades, but can be destroyed in months. I was living that reality now. Beyond the numbers lay even more troubling considerations. If I gave in to this demand, what message would it send? That Jack could use me as a financial backup whenever he got into trouble, that my parents could emotionally blackmail me into covering for his mistakes. Where would it end? I reached out to my friend Sophia for perspective. Unlike David, she had known me since college and had met my family numerous times. "I've always thought your parents treated Jack differently," she said over coffee that afternoon. "But this is beyond favoritism. They're asking you to sacrifice your financial future for someone who committed a crime against you. That's not normal or healthy grace." Her validation helped, but I still felt torn. That afternoon, I consulted with a financial advisor at my bank, explaining the situation as calmly as I could. "Unfortunately, we see this kind of family identity theft more often than you'd think," she told me. "The hard truth is that unless you report it as fraud, you're likely to be held responsible for the debt. And there's nothing preventing your brother from doing this again if there are no consequences." The legal implications became clearer after a brief consultation with a lawyer specializing in identity theft. "By paying the loan, you could be seen as accepting the debt as legitimate," he warned. "That could complicate any future claims of fraud, especially if more unauthorized accounts appear. Family loyalty is important, but so is protecting yourself legally." My therapist, whom I'd been seeing occasionally for anxiety management, offered perhaps the most helpful perspective. "Your parents have created a dynamic where Jack's needs always come first, and you're expected to sacrifice your well-being for his," she explained. "This isn't about the money anymore. It's about setting boundaries and breaking unhealthy patterns. The question is, are you ready to put yourself first, even if it means disappointing your family?" Meanwhile, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members. My mother sent hourly texts alternating between guilt trips, "How could you do this to your brother?" and emotional pleas, "We just want our family to stay together." My father's messages were terse demands to see reason and stop being selfish. Jack's ranged from apologetic, "I hate myself for putting you in this position," to manipulative, "If I go to jail, it's on you." The extended family recruitment was particularly painful. Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, called to remind me that family always comes first. Uncle Paul suggested I was overreacting to a simple mistake. Even my cousin Rachel, once my childhood confidant, messaged that I should find forgiveness in my heart. None of them acknowledged the gravity of what Jack had done or considered the impact on my life. It was as if my feelings and future didn't matter at all. 3 days after the disastrous family dinner, I woke at 4 a.m. with unexpected clarity. Staring at my ceiling in the pre-dawn darkness, I mentally replayed a lifetime of similar patterns on a smaller scale. Jack borrowing money from my piggy bank as a child, never returning it. Jack taking my car in college without permission and returning it with an empty tank and a dent he never paid to repair. Jack asking to use my address for job applications because his credit check would disqualify him for employment. Jack ruining my 30th birthday dinner by showing up drunk and causing a scene, then being comforted by my parents while I cleaned up his mess. With sudden clarity, I realized this wasn't an isolated incident, but the culmination of a lifelong pattern. I had been trained since childhood to put Jack's needs above my own, to be the responsible one, who fixed problems rather than created them. My parents hadn't just enabled Jack. They had enlisted me as a co-enabler, a role I could no longer accept. In that moment of realization, something shifted inside me. For the first time, I understood that protecting myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. I deserved the same consideration and protection my family had always given Jack, and if they couldn't or wouldn't provide that, I would have to provide it for myself. By morning, my decision was made. I would report the fraud, face the family fallout, and begin rebuilding my life on my own terms. The path forward was frightening, but continuing the old pattern would eventually destroy me. The following Monday, I took a day off work and walked into my bank with a folder of documents and a knot of determination in my stomach. The fraud department representative, a kind-eyed woman named Angela, listened attentively as I explained the situation. "Unfortunately, this happens more often than you might think," she said, echoing what the financial advisor had told me. "Family fraud is particularly complicated because of the emotional elements involved." Angela walked me through the process methodically. I filled out affidavits attesting that I hadn't authorized the loan or signed the documents. I provided samples of my actual signature for comparison with the forgery. Angela explained that the bank would conduct its own investigation, but I would also need to file a police report to fully protect myself legally. "The police report is often the hardest part for victims of family fraud," she acknowledged gently. "But without it, credit bureaus and lenders may not fully remove the fraudulent accounts from your record." She gave me a case number and a direct line to call for updates, along with a timeline. The initial investigation would take 30 to 45 days, during which the collections would be temporarily suspended. It was the first moment of relief I'd felt in days. The police station was my next stop. Walking through those doors felt like crossing a point of no return. The officer at the front desk directed me to a small interview room, where I met with Detective Ramirez, who specialized in financial crimes. "Take your time," she said, as I struggled to maintain composure while explaining what had happened. Identity theft between family members is particularly traumatic. When the inevitable question came, "And who do you believe is responsible for this fraud?" my voice nearly failed me. My brother, Jack Patterson. Saying his name out loud in that context made it real in a way nothing else had. Detective Ramirez typed the information without judgment, taking copies of my documents and creating an official case file. She explained that they would investigate, possibly interview Jack, and forward their findings to the district attorney, who would determine whether to press charges. "What typically happens in these cases?" I asked, both needing and dreading the answer. "It depends on many factors," the amount involved prior record, cooperation. First-time offenders sometimes receive probation and restitution requirements rather than jail time, especially if they admit guilt early in the process. She gave me a case number and victim resources pamphlet. "The most important thing now is protecting yourself from further damage. Have you frozen your credit?" I hadn't. So my next steps became clear. At home, I contacted all 3 major credit bureaus to place fraud alerts and credit freezes on my accounts. I enrolled in identity theft protection services that would monitor for any new accounts or inquiries. I documented every call, every conversation, every step taken, creating a paper trail that would protect me legally. The family backlash began almost immediately. My father called that evening, his voice tightly controlled but vibrating with anger. "The police came to talk to Jack today. Are you satisfied now?" "Dad, I had to protect myself." "You've betrayed this family." He cut me off. "Don't call us again until you've come to your senses and drop these charges." My mother showed up at my apartment the next morning, eyes red and swollen. I almost didn't answer the door, but her repeated knocking eventually wore me down. "How could you do this to your brother?" she asked the moment I let her in. "The police humiliated him. His employer might find out." "Mom, he committed a crime against me. He stole my identity. He took out a huge loan in my name. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to help him, she cried. That's what family does. We don't call the police on each other. We don't air our dirty laundry to strangers. This isn't about dirty laundry, I tried to explain. This is about criminal fraud. But she couldn't or wouldn't hear me. She left after extracting a promise that I would think about what I was doing to the family. The subtext was clear. The family's reputation mattered more than my financial security or Jack's accountability. Jack's response came in waves. First, angry text messages. Thanks for ruining my life. Then threatening ones. You'll regret this when you see what happens next. Finally, desperate pleas. Please call them off. I'll do anything. I can't handle this right now. I blocked his number after that last message, unable to bear the emotional manipulation any longer. The extended family campaign intensified too. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I rarely spoke with suddenly had strong opinions about my vindictive actions. Some called to lecture me about forgiveness. Others sent messages expressing their disappointment in me. A few simply sent prayer emojis as if divine intervention was needed to fix my moral compass rather than Jack's behavior. Through it all, my support system proved invaluable. David brought dinner over when I was too emotionally drained to cook. Sophia fielded some of the family calls, providing a buffer when I needed space. Colleagues covered meetings when I needed to deal with fraud paperwork during business hours. I also found strength in setting firm boundaries. I created email filters to redirect family messages to a separate folder. I could check when emotionally prepared. I limited social media use after discovering relatives posting vague but pointed comments about loyalty and forgiveness. I practiced responses with my therapist for inevitable confrontations at future family events. The most empowering moment came when I recognized I could stand firm despite the pressure. Each time I received notification of progress on my fraud case, each time a collections call was redirected to the fraud department, instead of me, I felt a small victory. I was protecting myself when no one else would, and there was profound power in that realization. 3 weeks after filing the police report, the bank's fraud investigation delivered its first results. They confirmed the loan signature didn't match mine and began the process of removing the account from my credit record. The collections agency suspended their pursuit of payment pending final resolution. My credit score began its slow recovery, though the damage would take months to fully repair. Still, each small improvement represented progress, not just financially, but in reclaiming control of my life. The family situation, however, continued to deteriorate. True to their word, my parents excluded me from all family functions. Mother's Day came and went without acknowledgement. My birthday passed with only silence from those who had celebrated with me every year of my life until now. Through mutual friends, I learned my parents had rallied the family around Jack, portraying him as the victim of my heartless actions. They told relatives I had abandoned my brother during his struggle with gambling addiction, conveniently omitting the fraud that precipitated everything. Some family members believed this narrative completely, while a few reached out privately with questions, sensing there might be more to the story. My Aunt Margaret, my father's sister, who had always been somewhat estranged from the family, surprised me with a call one evening. I wanted to hear your side, she said simply. Your parents' version doesn't add up. After I explained everything, she sighed heavily. You know your father did the same thing with his brother, my other brother, your Uncle Tom. Enabled him through addiction and financial disasters until it nearly bankrupted our parents. It's a family pattern that goes back generations. Her validation was healing in ways I hadn't anticipated. So you don't think I'm overreacting? Quite the opposite. You might be the first person in this family to actually break the cycle. Jack's situation reached a turning point when the police investigation concluded. The district attorney had enough evidence to charge him with identity theft and fraud, but offered a plea deal given his lack of prior criminal record. My parents immediately hired an expensive lawyer and put up their house as collateral for his bail after the initial arrest. The local newspaper ran a small story about the case, not naming me, but identifying Jack and the charges. This public exposure seemed to finally break through his denial. He issued a tearful public apology, claiming he was seeking treatment for gambling addiction and accepting responsibility for his mistakes. Privately, though, he continued to blame me for his predicament. Through a mutual friend, I heard he was telling people I had abandoned him in his darkest hour and chosen money over family. The disconnect between his public contrition and private accusations was jarring, but ultimately unsurprising. My own journey during this time was challenging but transformative. Each therapy session helped me recognize the unhealthy dynamics that had shaped my family relationships. I began to see how I had been cast as the responsible counterweight to Jack's chaos, expected to clean up messes rather than create appropriate boundaries. The golden child scapegoat dynamic is common in dysfunctional families, my therapist explained. Jack was the golden child who could do no wrong while you were valued primarily for being reliable and self-sufficient. Neither role is healthy or fair to either of you. This framework helped me understand why my parents' reaction had been so extreme. By refusing to rescue Jack, I had stepped out of my assigned role and disrupted the entire family system. Their anger wasn't just about the specific situation. It was about maintaining the dysfunction they had become comfortable with. Reconnecting with Aunt Margaret proved unexpectedly healing. She shared stories about my father's childhood, and the generational patterns of enabling that had shaped our family. She had distanced herself years ago, after similar conflicts building a happier life away from the dysfunction. You can love them from a distance, she advised. Set boundaries that protect you, while leaving the door open for healthier relationships if they ever become capable of them. As the court date approached, I prepared myself for the possibility of having to testify. The prospect of facing my family in court was terrifying, but I reminded myself daily that I hadn't created this situation. I was simply refusing to be victimized by it. In the end, Jack accepted a plea deal just days before the trial, guilty plea to reduced charges, 2 years probation, mandatory gambling addiction counseling, and court-ordered restitution payments to cover the fraudulent loan. He would avoid jail time as long as he complied with all conditions. I spotted my parents at the courthouse standing stoically by Jack as the judge delivered the sentence. They didn't acknowledge my presence, their faces masks of cold disapproval despite the leniency of the outcome. In their eyes, the very existence of legal consequences, any consequences for Jack's actions, was an unforgivable betrayal on my part. I left the courthouse that day with mixed emotions, relief that the legal process was concluding, sadness for the family, relationships that seemed irreparably damaged, but also a growing sense of pride in my own strength. For perhaps the first time in my life, I had valued my own well-being enough to stand firm despite enormous pressure to sacrifice myself once again. 6 months after discovering the fraudulent loan, my life looked remarkably different. I had moved to a new apartment in a different neighborhood, needing fresh surroundings, untainted by painful memories. The slightly higher rent meant postponing my house plans a bit longer, but the clean slate was worth it. My career had actually benefited from my renewed focus. With family drama consuming less of my emotional energy, I threw myself into work projects with clearer thinking and creativity. The promotion to senior management that followed came with a salary increase that helped offset some of the financial setback from the fraud aftermath. My credit had largely recovered. The fraudulent loan was removed from my reports, and my score climbed back to within 20 points of its previous level. I had begun saving for a house again, this time with a more realistic timeline and clearer boundaries around my finances. Perhaps the most significant change was my engagement to David. His unwavering support throughout the ordeal had deepened our connection in ways neither of us had anticipated. He had seen me at my most vulnerable and stood by me through difficult decisions, proving himself the family I was choosing rather than the one I was born into. Contact with my parents remained minimal. They sent a terse congratulatory card when they heard about my engagement through relatives, but declined our invitation to celebrate in person. The message was clear: their conditions for reconciliation remained unchanged. I would need to apologize for reporting Jack's fraud and somehow make amends for the legal consequences he faced. Jack himself maintained a complicated position. The court-mandated counseling seemed to be having some effect, as he occasionally sent messages that showed glimmers of genuine accountability. Yet he still lived with our parents, still depended on them financially, and still participated in family events, from which I remained excluded. The holidays were particularly difficult. Thanksgiving had always been at my parents' home, with specific traditions and dishes I had loved since childhood. Spending it with David's family was lovely, but bittersweet. Christmas brought a small package from my mother, a family ornament I had made in elementary school with no note attached. The gesture felt like both olive branch and reminder of what I had lost. But I was building new traditions and connections. I found unexpected community in a support group for identity theft victims, where many others shared similar stories of family fraud and betrayal. Their understanding helped me feel less alone in my experience. I channeled my accountant's expertise into leading financial literacy workshops at a local community center, helping others understand credit identity protection and financial boundaries. Transforming my painful experience into education for others brought meaning to what had happened. I also began writing a blog about identity theft protection and family financial abuse. The response was overwhelming, hundreds of comments from people who had experienced similar situations but felt too ashamed or isolated to speak about them. Breaking that silence became a mission that gave purpose to my pain. In January, nearly 8 months after everything began, an unexpected letter arrived from Jack. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter on quality stationery, something so uncharacteristic of my impulsive brother that I almost didn't recognize his handwriting. "Dear Grace," it began. "I've written this letter dozens of times in my head, and no version ever seems adequate. How do you apologize for violating someone's trust so completely? The counseling I've been doing has forced me to confront not just my gambling addiction, but the patterns of behavior I've engaged in throughout my life." He continued for several pages, acknowledging specific instances where he had taken advantage of me, our parents, and others. He wrote about recognizing our parents' enabling behavior and how it had harmed both of us in different ways. He explained that he was now living in a halfway house, working a modest job, and attending daily support meetings. Most surprisingly, he made no request for reconciliation or forgiveness. "I'm not writing to ask for anything from you. You don't owe me a response, forgiveness, or another chance. I simply needed to acknowledge the harm I've caused and take responsibility for it, whether or not you ever see this letter." I read it several times, feelings churning. There was genuine accountability here, something I'd never witnessed from Jack before. Yet years of manipulation made me cautious about accepting this apparent transformation at face value. I decided not to respond immediately, giving myself time to process my complex emotions about this unexpected development. 2 weeks later, I received a text from my cousin informing me that my parents had been asking mutual relatives if they thought I would agree to meet for coffee. This indirect approach was typical of their conflict-avoidant communication style, but the outreach itself surprised me. After discussing it with David and my therapist, I decided to accept the invitation, setting clear boundaries for myself about what I would and wouldn't discuss. We met at a neutral coffee shop midway between our homes. My parents arrived together looking older than I remembered, uncertainty visible in their usually confident postures. After awkward greetings and small talk about the weather, my mother reached across the table. "We've missed you, Grace." "I've missed you too," I admitted. It was true, despite everything. My father cleared his throat. "We thought, perhaps it's time to put this difficult business behind us and be a family again. Jack is doing better with his problems. The legal matter is resolved. There's no reason we can't move forward." I took a deep breath. "I appreciate you reaching out. I've missed our family. But I need to be clear about something. I won't pretend the fraud didn't happen or that your response to it didn't hurt me deeply. Moving forward requires acknowledgement of what happened and changed boundaries, not just forgetting it all." My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Grace, we've all made mistakes in this situation," my mother began. "No, Mom. Jack committed fraud. You and Dad threatened to disown me for protecting myself. Those weren't mistakes. They were harmful actions with consequences for our relationship." My father's face hardened. "So you're saying you won't reconcile unless we admit we were wrong? That sounds like holding a grudge." "It's not about being right or wrong," I explained. "It's about acknowledging reality so we can build something healthier. I can't pretend everything's fine when the same patterns are still in place. What patterns? My mother asked defensively. The pattern where Jack's needs always come first, where I'm expected to sacrifice my well-being to protect him from consequences, where family loyalty means enabling destructive behavior rather than supporting health and accountability. The conversation continued in circles, my parents unable or unwilling to acknowledge the dysfunction that had brought us to this point. They wanted reconciliation on their terms, return to the old dynamics with surface forgiveness, but no fundamental change. I wanted healing that included accountability and new, healthier patterns. After an hour, it became clear we had reached an impasse. As we prepared to leave, my father made one final attempt. "You'll always have a place in the family if you're willing to let this go," he said, a mixture of invitation and condition in his voice. I looked at them both feeling sad, but strangely peaceful. "I love you both, but I won't sacrifice my well-being or pretend harmful patterns aren't happening anymore. When you're ready for an honest relationship with real boundaries, I'll be here." Walking away from that coffee shop, I felt no triumph or vindication, only a quiet certainty that I was finally honoring my own worth. The ultimatum they had given me months earlier, "Drop it or you're out of the family," had inadvertently given me the greatest gift, the courage to choose myself when no one else would. In the months that followed, I continued building my life on new foundations. David and I set a wedding date, choosing to have a small ceremony with friends and the few family members who had maintained relationships with me. I found a house within my budget, in a pleasant neighborhood, taking pride in achieving this goal despite the setbacks. My blog grew into a platform that connected with thousands of others, navigating similar family dynamics. The relationship with my parents and Jack remained complicated and limited. Occasional text messages, birthday cards, and brief updates replaced the regular contact we once had. I left the door open for deeper healing, while maintaining the boundaries necessary for my well-being. Some days this balance brought peace. Other days it brought grief for the close family I had once imagined. But through it all, I discovered a profound truth. Family isn't just about blood relations or shared history. It's about mutual respect, healthy boundaries, and people who value your well-being as much as their own. Sometimes the family we create matters more than the family we're born into. Sometimes loving someone means letting go of toxic patterns rather than perpetuating them. The ultimatum that once seemed like the end of my world became the beginning of a better one where I defined my worth rather than accepting others' limitations of it. By choosing myself when my family wouldn't, I found strength I never knew I had and built connections based on health rather than obligation. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had given in to my parents' demands that day. Would Jack have eventually paid back the loan? Would my parents have recognized the unhealthy patterns? Would anything have really changed? The questions have no answers, but I know with certainty that I would have lost something far more valuable than money or credit score. I would have lost myself. So if you're watching this and facing your own impossible choice between self-respect and family expectations, know you're not alone. The path to authentic living sometimes means making painful choices that others won't understand. But in choosing your own well-being, you create the possibility for healthier relationships with yourself and others, relationships built on mutual respect rather than sacrifice and obligation. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family expectations and your own well-being? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do.